Just a quick tangent. So all that accompaniment training and performance you did, I'm curious, like playing chords, getting really hands-on playing chords of the piano, accompanying different instruments. Is that valuable for a pianist's education? I know nowadays pianists love to play virtuosic repertoire and it's a lot of solo and they tend to neglect chamber playing is there a dimension that they're missing if they neglect chamber playing?
Oh, heavens, yes. On the other hand, I understand the pressure to specialize. So if you can burn up the keyboard with lists, you want to impress people with that. Well, that tends to be what you do. But yes, chamber music definitely adds a dimension, an important dimension to one's understanding of music, and accompanying singers does as well. Um, to learn how singers breathe is very important.
Yeah. And does that also, you're a composer. Do you notice, are there little things about that that also help you if you, because I guess I read an anecdote that Mendelssohn accompanied somebody like a god, as Schumann said, or something. And I feel like all these great composers are quite well rounded. They can kind of jump into any setting. And does that help in perhaps in composition or music theory as well? Do you get to see?
Oh, well, I stopped composing at the age of 21. I realized that was not what I was cut out for. So I won't really, and I composed in those days very up to date styles, very sort of late 20th century styles. So I won't speak to that. But in terms of theory of understanding music from the inside, certainly composing counterpoint is extremely important, and learning to hear multiple voices and being able to hear multiple voices without sounding them on an instrument. To be able to conceptualize music, to hear music mentally the way a conductor does when studying the score. I can't overemphasize the importance of that skill. And to understand harmony through the fingers, as in thorough bass or basso continuo, call it what you will, also I think is tremendously important.
So, Professor Rothstein, I know you're extensively trained in accompaniment. Sight reading is something I'm very interested in. I think it's such an important thing. So, can you speak on sight reading and its importance, how to get good at it? So, just the topic in general.
How to get good at it is a difficult topic. I've always just been good at it. So I started accompanying when I was still in high school. I remember the very first piece I accompanied was a Hindemith viola sonata. And when I was a student in college and graduate school, I did huge amounts of accompanying, and I tended to be hired because I could sight read very well, and I learned pieces very fast. And when I did accompanying for voice lessons, I just had to read whatever was in front of me. There was a teacher at New England Conservatory, a voice teacher named Ray DeVoe. He's no longer living, and he taught a lot of Fauré songs. And sight reading Fauré is hard, but you just had to do it. And I was hired as accompanist for the New England Conservatory chorus because I could sight read choral scores. And I don't exactly know how I did it or do it, except that I've always been good at audiating. I can look at a score and hear it in my head. And
Oh,
I've always been able to do that. I've never not been able to do that.
is
So
that is that like a perfect pitch thing though?
it is partly a perfect pitch thing. I do have perfect pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, people can audiate scores with only relative pitch. It might not be at the exact pitch
Mm.
level, and it doesn't matter a bit. I do happen to have perfect pitch. So sight reading is kind of a mystery to me. I've just always done it.
Have you done a lot of it? I mean, massive quantities of it in your life? Massive quantities.
Massive quantities, massive
Okay.
quantities.
Well,
When I would want to, figure out, okay, what's the next piece I want to work on as a pianist when I was still I don't practice anymore. When I was still practicing, I'd go to the music library, take scores down off the shelf, open them up and listen to them, audiate them and decide, which piece I wanted to play next.
Wow. What about like you said choral score? So that involves score reduction then as well? Is that
Sort of, yes. So, reading four staves.
yeah.
And now, certainly in those days, it was modern score with just treble
Yeah.
and bass clef. Reading it in four clefs is much more difficult and something I had to train myself to do later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just do it. So essentially, it's just do lots of it.
That's the thing. And when you're, in a voice lesson, and the singer is singing, being forced to not stop, that is so important. You just have to keep playing. You cannot stop because it's not about you; it's about the singer.
Yeah.
And so, maybe the most important thing in training to sight read is just to keep doing it without allowing yourself to stop.